Thank you so much. My name is Andrew Duncan, and I'm the co-founder of the R.T. Weatherman Foundation. More importantly, today I come before you as an American proud to stand again on sovereign Ukrainian soil. Before I continue, I'd like to introduce a few of my fellow travelers here to Kyiv. Dr. Meaghan, our leader and a genuine American patriot. U.S. Ambassador Douglas Hickey, who helped lead the ascension of Finland into NATO, thanks to the people and sacrifice of Ukraine. Members of the Archdiocese of Przemyśl, Poland, where 3 years ago our foundation founded a Ukrainian refugee center with Father Marek Machela, and our heroic humanitarian team here inside of Ukraine. Our R.T. Weatherman Foundation is named after my wife Bess's father. At age 19, Romulus T. Weatherman was wounded in World War II and spent a year recovering in a Philippines hospital from his wounds. He went on to become a journalist who treasured two things: democracy and the truth. Today we gather here again together to address the truth. It is true that Vladimir Putin, without provocation, invaded the sovereign democracy of Ukraine. It is true that Putin has kidnapped tens of thousands of children, including parading kidnapped Ukrainian children around a football stadium in sub-zero temperatures. It is true that Putin has sent missiles into Ukrainian children's bedrooms. In fact, an 8-year-old Ukrainian friend of mine just had her 16th operation last week in Miami after receiving a missile into her bedroom in Kherson. It is true that Putin has wired the largest nuclear power plant in Europe with explosives. It is true that Putin has committed genocide by massacring entire Ukrainian communities. It is true that Putin has massacred Ukrainian troops and murdered heroic Ukrainian soldiers who were surrendering. It is true that Putin burns his war dead in the battlefield. It is true that we, as fellow Americans, never leave Americans behind, ever. It is true that 157 million tax-paying Americans have provided $119.7 billion in Ukrainian aid, which is less than the European Union. It is true that Putin's invasion has cost U.S. taxpayers a mere 76 cents per day for 3 years. It is true that the real tax on our fellow Americans is high global inflation and high global prices directly caused by Putin's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. It is true that Putin commits double taps on aid workers, including American aid workers. And it is true Vladimir Putin has murdered many Americans who came to Ukraine to defend the children and freedom of Ukraine. Not for money, but for our collective shared love of freedom and democracy. It is true that none of these men were coerced into fighting for Ukraine. It is true that Putin has coerced men from India to Cuba to North Korea to pursue his depraved invasion of Ukraine. It is true that Putin's trolls have disgustingly harassed the families of fallen American fighters, families who live on United States soil. As fellow Americans, if we are to be America first, then we must be freedom first and Putin last. Anyone who mass murders Americans should not be allowed into the United States, never mind the White House. It is true that Putin is a genocidal, kidnapping war criminal who has killed Americans, Ukrainians, New Zealanders, Australians, British citizens, Brazilians, Colombians, Canadians, and EU citizens with weapons from Iran, North Korea, and the Chinese Communist Party. Our heroes who we honor here tonight are heroes who followed the truth. The idea that their deaths are being widely ignored around the world is unacceptable. That ends here tonight. Once again, to my fellow Americans, Vladimir Putin is murdering and catastrophically wounding heroic Americans. The deaths of these heroes can neither be ignored nor allowed to have occurred in vain. As Americans, we are privileged to have an ally like Ukraine. Ukraine is not yet in NATO, but a large band of global brothers declared their own Article 5 anyway. Why? Because Ukraine is Europe, not Russia. It is true that these great human beings lost their lives on the rich soil of Ukraine. Because of their ultimate sacrifice, the people of Ukraine and the United States are now forever bonded by blood. The final truth goes to my fellow Americans. In the immortal words of President John F. Kennedy, to whom much is given, much is expected. There have never been a more nobler fight in American history than the defense of Ukraine by an invading member of the United Nations Security Council. May God bless Ukraine, especially her brave children, as well as all her brave defenders. And may God bless these heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice for global freedom and the heroic loved ones who each of them have left behind. Thank you.